5 real deep web horror stories that broke the internet. It is exactly 3 minutes past 2 in the morning. The house is completely quiet. The only sound is the low, steady purr of my computer tower on the floor. Outside, the wind is moving through the trees, making the branches scrape against the siding. It is a soft, rhythmic sound. Click, click, click. I have been sitting in this exact spot for over 6 hours. My eyes feel heavy, dry, and strained from the harsh blue light of the monitor. My screen is a chaotic mess of open tabs. I have been diving deep tonight. Deeper than I usually go. I am looking for the things the internet tried to forget. The stories that grew in the dark corners of early forums. The ones that felt too specific, too raw to be entirely fake. Digital folklore has a strange way of staining your mind. You read a thread, you close the tab, but the words stay behind. They linger in the room like dust. I am documenting them tonight. I want to compile the 5 most disruptive, deeply rooted horror stories that ever surfaced on the web. The ones that people still whisper about on archived message boards. But as the night gets deeper, the air in my room feels heavier. It feels thick, almost hard to breathe. I need to focus. I need to write this down before the exhaustion completely takes over. Story 1, Ted the Caver. Origin, Angel Fire 2001. The first archive on my screen takes me back to the very early days of the internet. It is a simple, old webpage hosted on Angel Fire. The background is plain white. The text is basic. It is called Ted the Caver. It is written as a personal journal by a man named Ted. He and his friend Randy were avid cave explorers. In early 2001, they discovered a tiny, unexplored opening at the bottom of a familiar cave. The hole was incredibly small. It was barely the size of a 5-gallon bucket, a tight, suffocating channel of solid rock. Ted became completely obsessed with it. He called it Floyd's tomb. The logs describe weeks of brutal physical labor. They used a rotary hammer to slowly chip away at the limestone. Every entry is slow and methodical. They would squeeze their bodies into the dark, cold stone inch by inch. The realism of the technical descriptions is what makes it so uncomfortable. The dust, the cramped shoulders, the fear of getting stuck in absolute darkness. But then the tone of the journal shifts. They start hearing things from the other side of the tiny hole. A loud, hollow scraping sound. The sound of rock moving against rock from deep within a space that should be entirely empty. Then came the screams, a sound that did not originate from any animal. Ted describes a terrifying, unnatural screech echoing out of the darkness, yet the obsession drew him back. He finally widened the hole enough to slide through. On the other side, he found a massive, pristine cavern, and on the far wall, he found a single, ancient hieroglyph that looked like a standing figure. He also found a rock that had been moved from the inside, blocking a deeper passage. His final entries are frantic. He describes severe hallucinations, terrible nightmares, and the distinct feeling of a presence watching him from the dark corners of his own home. The last entry ends abruptly. He stated he was going back into the cave one last time with a gun. He never updated the site again. I stop reading. I sit back in my chair and stretch my neck. A sudden, sharp sound breaks the silence of my room. A low, heavy scrape. It sounds exactly like something dense and rough dragging across a hard surface. It is coming from inside my wall, right behind my desk. I freeze. My heart gives a hard, uncomfortable thud against my ribs. I hold my breath and listen. The house is old, houses settle. Walls expand and contract when the temperature drops at night. That is standard science. It is a perfectly logical explanation. But the sound did not sound like timber flexing. It sounded heavy. It sounded like stone sliding against stone. I stare at the drywall right behind my monitor. The paint is slightly cracked near the baseboard. I never noticed that crack before. I press my palm flat against the wall. It feels unusually cold, colder than the rest of the room. It feels like underground stone. I pull my hand back. I am just letting the story get to me. It is classic auto-suggestion. I need to move on to the next archive. Story 2, The Diania House. Origin: Diania House, Com 2004. The next case is an epistolary masterpiece from 2004. It started as a series of blogs and emails published across a network of interconnected websites. The central site was called the Diania House. It was created by a man named Janet Lynch. He was trying to figure out why his childhood friend, Mark Condry, had suddenly walked into a house in Mississippi and shot several people before disappearing. The story unfolds through eerie email correspondences. Mark had become obsessed with a particular house, a normal white two-story home, but the house was not normal. Mark realized that the house existed in multiple locations across the country at the same time. It was a predatory structure, a biological organism masquerading as architecture. A Diania house is a Venus flytrap. The house lures people inside by looking familiar, safe, and ordinary. Once you enter, the interior rooms shift. The hallways elongate. The windows look out onto landscapes that do not exist. It digests your reality. As you read through the old logs, you see the characters slowly losing their minds. They try to monitor the house. They leave text messages and voice memos. They describe the physical space changing while they are standing inside it. A door that led to a kitchen suddenly opens into a dark, empty bedroom. The stairs go up, but they never reach a second floor. The characters are slowly drawn into the structure, one by one, unable to resist the pull. The website eventually went dark, leaving a trail of broken links and unanswered emails. My phone buzzes on the desk. The sudden vibration makes me jump. My hand shakes slightly as I pick it up. It is a text message from an unknown number. There is no area code. Unknown, are you still at the office? I frown. I do not work in an office. I am in my spare bedroom at home. I type back quickly. Me, wrong number. The reply comes back instantly, before I can even set the phone down. Unknown, the hall looks different tonight. Did you change the lights? A cold chill crawls up my spine. I stand up from my desk. My legs feel stiff. I walk over to my bedroom door and turn the brass handle. The door swings open silently. I look out into my hallway. The hallway is short. It connects my bedroom, the bathroom, and the living room. It is exactly 12 feet long. But tonight, under the dim amber glow of the nightlight, the far end of the hall looks incredibly distant. The bathroom door looks small, tiny, like it is 50 feet away. I close my eyes tightly. I shake my head. I count to 3 in my head. 1, 2, 3. I open my eyes. The hallway is normal again. It is just 12 feet. My depth perception is warping because I am exhausted. Staring at a glowing screen in a dark room destroys your spatial awareness. That is a known medical fact. My eyes are just playing tricks on me. I close the bedroom door and lock it. The click of the deadbolt sounds incredibly loud in the quiet room. Story 3, Blank Room Soup. Origin, Deep Web, Early YouTube 2005. I sit back down at my computer. My hands are cold. I need to keep writing. The third story is one of the most deeply disturbing visual mysteries to ever surface from the early deep web. It is commonly known as Blank Room Soup, or sometimes Torture Soup, AVI. The video is less than a minute long. The quality is poor, grainy, and heavily compressed. It shows a man sitting at a plain wooden table in a completely blank white room. He is holding a large wooden spoon. He is eating soup from a small bowl. The man looks deeply traumatized. His eyes are heavily bruised and red. He is weeping uncontrollably as he forces himself to swallow the soup. Halfway through the video, a person in a massive, terrifying costume walks out from the shadows behind him. The costume is a character named Ray Ray. It has a giant, blank white head with massive black eyes and a permanent, empty smile. The costumed figure gently strokes the crying man's back. Then, a second masked figure emerges. They both stand over him, watching him cry and eat. For years, people debated the origin of the video. Some claimed it was an edgy art project by a performance group. Others dug deeper into the dark web archives and found terrifying rumors. The rumors claimed the man was a kidnapped victim. His captors had starved him for days before forcing him to eat a soup made from the remains of his own family. The psychological torment visible in his eyes is entirely real. There is no acting in that video. The pure, unadulterated dread on his face cannot be faked. I feel a sudden wave of nausea. I go to close the tab, but my browser freezes. The mouse cursor will not move. The screen begins to flicker violently. The blue light pulses against the walls of my room. Then, a new window pops up in the center of my monitor. It is a media player. A video file is automatically downloading directly onto my hard drive. The file name is just a string of random numbers. The download hits 100%. The video plays automatically. The footage is grainy. It is a live video feed. It shows a kitchen, a plain wooden table, a small bowl sitting in the center. My chest tightens. I recognize that kitchen. It is my kitchen. It is downstairs. The camera angle is high, mounted near the ceiling corner. I can see the digital clock on my microwave in the background. The green numbers show the exact current time. 2:34 a.m. I stare at the screen, completely paralyzed. I cannot blink. I cannot move my fingers. As I watch, a figure steps into the frame from the hallway downstairs. It is tall. It is wearing a massive, oversized costume with a giant, blank white head. The head tilts upward, staring directly into the camera lens, staring directly at me through the screen. I slam my laptop shut. The room goes completely black. The sudden darkness is absolute. It feels heavy, pressing down on my eyelids. My breath comes in short, ragged gasps. I can hear my own heart hammering inside my ears like a drum. Boom, boom, boom. Is this a hallucination? Sleep deprivation can cause severe acute psychosis. It can cause vivid visual and auditory hallucinations. I have been awake for over 24 hours. My brain is misfiring. It has to be misfiring. The alternative is impossible. The alternative means my house is no longer safe. I reach out into the dark, my fingers trembling, and turn on my small desk lamp. The warm yellow light floods the room, cutting through the shadows. I look around. Everything is in its place. My books, my clothes, my chair, everything is normal. I am safe in my room. I just need to breathe. I just need to finish this list and go to sleep. Story 4. Anansi's Goatman Story. Origin, 4chan X Board, 2012. I keep the laptop screen tilted down slightly, just enough to see the text editor. I refuse to look at the internet browser anymore. I will type the fourth story from memory. It is a legendary piece of internet folklore from the 4chan Paranormal Board. It is known simply as Anansi's Goatman Story. The narrator describes a trip to the deep woods of Alabama with a group of teenagers and family members. They were staying in an old, isolated trailer deep in the forest. One night, they noticed a strange biological wrongness in the air. A heavy, suffocating smell of copper, ozone, and rotting meat. It was a smell that made their stomachs turn. But the true horror of the story was psychological. They realized there was an extra person in their group. They would count the people in the room and the number would be correct. But when they counted again, there was one extra. The entity was able to subtly blur their perception. It could make them look past it. It joined them on a walk through the pitch-black woods. It stood among them in the dark. It spoke, but its voice was completely wrong. It did not understand how human vocal cords worked. It would mimic the words of the people around it, but the pitch was flat, mechanical, and dead. It was an ancient, shape-shifting thing trying desperately to pass as human, but failing at the fine details. The terror came from the sudden, jarring realization that the person standing next to you, the person you thought you knew, had a face that was slowly melting and shifting in the moonlight. I stopped typing. The smell hits me first. It is faint at first, but it builds with terrifying speed. It fills my bedroom, a thick copper stench. The metallic tang of old blood mixed with the sharp, burning smell of an electrical fire. It gets into the back of my throat. It makes me gag. I cover my mouth with my hand. Then I hear the breathing. It is not coming from behind the wall. It is not coming from downstairs. It is coming from inside this room. It is loud, wet, uneven. A heavy, rattling inhale followed by a long, wet click. It sounds like someone trying to breathe through a throat filled with fluid. I am completely frozen in my chair. My eyes are fixed on the yellow wallpaper in front of me. I cannot turn my head. I am too terrified to look behind me. If I look, I validate it. If I look, I admit that it is real. Then a voice speaks from the dark corner of my bedroom, right next to the closet. Houses settle, walls expand. That is standard science. The voice uses my exact words. It uses my exact tone, my exact cadence, but it is completely flat. There is no emotion behind it. It sounds like a text-to-speech program reading a script using a digital copy of my vocal cords. The syllables are clipped, mechanical, dead. My mind is fracturing. I can feel it snapping at the edges. This is a dream. It must be a lucid nightmare. I fell asleep at my desk. That is the only logical conclusion. I am asleep right now and my brain is weaving these stories into a vivid, terrifying night terror. I need to wake up. I need to force myself to wake up. Move a finger. Blink. Open your eyes. Wake up. Story 5, Penpal. Origin, Reddit r/nosleep, 2011. I am not awake. The cold air on my skin is too sharp. The smell of copper is too real. My hands move to the keyboard like a reflex, a desperate attempt to maintain control, to hold onto reality through the only thing I have left. The 5th story, the final archive. It is the most grounded, terrifyingly realistic story ever posted on Reddit. It is called Penpal. It is told by a man remembering strange, disconnected events from his childhood. When he was a young boy, his school class did a penpal project. They tied letters to balloons and released them into the sky. The boy received a reply, but the reply did not contain letters. It only contained strange, blurry Polaroid photographs. Photographs of the boy, taken from a distance while he was playing in his yard. As the narrator grows older, the memories begin to stitch together into a horrific tapestry. He remembers a night when he woke up in his bed, feeling deeply unsettled. His mother told him he had just walked in his sleep. But years later, he discovers the truth. A stranger had been living underneath his house. An obsessive, deeply disturbed stalker had been creeping into his bedroom every single night. The man would climb into the boy's bed while he was sleeping. He would hold him. He would take Polaroid photos of his sleeping face in the pitch black. The psychological weight of the story is unbearable. The realization that the most dangerous monster is not a ghost or a demon. It is a silent, flesh and blood human being who has been standing right beside you in the dark for years, completely unnoticed. A soft, sharp sound breaks my focus. A slide, a gentle friction against the carpet. I look down at the bottom of my bedroom door. The gap between the wood and the floor is small, but something is sliding through it. A small, square piece of stiff paper. It slides slowly across the white carpet, stopping right in the center of the room. It is a Polaroid photograph. My hands are shaking so violently I can barely function. I stand up from my desk. My knees feel like water. I walk over to the center of the room. I look down at the photograph. The image is sharp. The flash of the camera has illuminated a dark room. It shows a man sitting at a desk. His back is turned to the camera. His laptop is open, casting a pale blue glow over his face. He is typing, but that is not the terrifying part. Standing directly behind his chair, leaning over his shoulder, is a figure. Its face is close to his neck. Its skin is pale, gray, and stretched tight over its skull. Its eyes are wide, unblinking, and entirely black. It is a photograph of me, taken from inside this room, taken just a few minutes ago. I turn around slowly. The yellow light of my desk lamp flickers once, twice, then it dies. The room is plunged back into absolute darkness. The copper smell is overwhelming now. It is thick, choking. I can hear the wet, rattling breathing right in front of my face. I can feel the cold, heavy drafts of air hitting my forehead. It is standing right here. I reach out into the blackness. My fingers brush against something cold, something rough. It feels like solid, underground stone. The voice speaks one last time. It is whispering right into my ear. Its breath smells like rot. Finish the story.